Hi, I'm your host, Larry Smith, and you're listening to Speak Out Podcast, a community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. Today, my co-host is Joseph Perry, who is a senior at Hatton High School and a student in the Health Science program here at LCCTC. Hi, Joseph. Let's welcome our guest to the show.
Hi, Larry. We are excited to introduce our guest for the podcast, Miss Sherry McWhorter.
Sherry McWhorter is the school nurse coordinator for the Lawrence County School System. Her prior experience included work in private office practice as well as in hospital settings in Alabama. She's a resident of Lawrence County, and Mrs. McWhorter is married with 2 children. She supports mission work with a nonprofit, Ghana West Africa Missions Water for West Africa, and her personal contribution is medical health screenings in rural villages. Welcome to Speak Out, Mrs. McWhorter.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to have me here today. I'm very excited to be here.
We're excited.
Tell us about your current job.
I work for the Lawrence County School System, and I'm the school nurse coordinator. I've been here for 23 years. It's been quite a journey, but I feel very honored to be here to be a part of the school system. And my responsibilities basically are overseeing our health services program, which involves the whole entire school system. And I provide leadership to our school nurse program, which I currently have 15 school nurses on staff. We have a group of excellent school nurses. And my responsibility is to oversee that program and make sure that we're in compliance with all the laws and regulations from like the Alabama Board of Nursing, the Alabama State Department of Education, and then just legislative laws. They're our governing body, and so I work together with all of those to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do in providing that care for our students. But the priority is our students. Our health care and providing the health needs that they need every single day that we come to school is our main priority for our school system.
Well, you have different types of nurses on your staff here. Like, what is the difference between LPN, RN, and nurse practitioner?
We do have different nurse degree levels here. We have LPNs and RNs. We have some associate RNs and some bachelor BSN RNs. We do not have any nurse practitioners on staff here. But the differences are, a lot of it is the degree of education and also your scope of practice. So that degree goes along with the scope of practice, which is set forth by the Alabama Board of Nursing. So we have LPNs, which is more of a technical skills degree, and then that's a licensed practical nurse. And then we have a registered nurse, and that is either like an associate degree, or you can do a BSN, which is your Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So that's at like a 4-year university.
What are some of the challenges of your job?
Oh, wow. We face challenges every single day. Currently, we are battling the flu. The flu is going on now, and so we have a lot of students and staff out with the flu. So one thing we battle and a challenge daily is just our daily schedule to make sure that we have adequate nurse coverage for all the services that we provide, because we provide services in the school all day, every day, and also on field trips or special events. Sometimes nurses are required to go on to those events. And that's one of our big daily challenges that we have. And I guess an overall challenge for the program would be to just maintain to stay current. School nursing is ever changing. There are new laws and regulations that go through the legislature that apply to us specifically. And so we have to comply, make sure that we're in compliance with those, and just to be flexible.
Did you have a personal reason for joining healthcare?
Oh, wow. So that's a good question. So I'll tell you a little story. When I was doing my clinicals, way back when I was a student nurse, one of my clinicals was with the Alabama Department of Public Health, and they, at that time, were contracted with schools. So they went into the schools. So I was shadowing a school nurse from Public Health, and we went into the schools, and that day we did head lice checks. So the students lined up, and we did head lice checks, and I thought to myself, I will never do this job. So you never say never, right? So that was one thing, I guess, at that point in time I thought I didn't want to do. And so, of course, I took a different path in my nursing career, which I loved and actually enjoyed a lot. But my family came along. And so sometimes we make career choices for our families.
Right.
And that was one of the big things that led me to school nursing. This job came open here in Lawrence County, and it was just the perfect fit. I had 2 young children, and it was the best decision of my career because I absolutely love school nursing. And it is a very different type of setting for a nurse, but there are so many opportunities, and it's been absolutely wonderful for me.
Well, how is what you do now different and similar to what happens in a hospital setting or doctor's office
Yeah,
setting?
sure. So nurses are, we follow certain guidelines and scope of practice, like I mentioned before, and we follow doctor's orders. So we are underneath to follow the orders that a physician writes or a healthcare provider. We have a lot of nurse practitioners now that also write orders. So those orders are brought to us in the school setting. So that's similar as what you would follow is in a hospital, you do provide that care and you follow doctor's orders. So in the school setting, you're still underneath those doctor's orders. We don't write those types of orders as nurses, but the difference is the setting. Of course, the hospital setting is very different from the school setting. So within our scope of practice, we do make those decisions and provide that quality care that we're required to do here in the school system. But in a school, the nurse is the expert in that building. They don't have a doctor overseeing them. They don't have someone down the hall to go ask. You've got to be very dynamic, ever-changing, making decisions, thinking on your feet, because you're it.
So when you was starting out, did you start as a school nurse and work your way up to get to your current position?
No, I actually started in, my first job as a nurse was in surgery. I worked in the OR. I worked as a surgical nurse and scrub nurse. Then I moved into the office setting. I worked for a dermatologist for like 6 years, and we did outpatient surgery. So I still enjoyed the surgery aspect of that. It was one of my, I guess, one thing I really have enjoyed a lot in my career. So he retired, and I went back into surgery and worked there when this position opened up. So when this position opened up that I have now, it was here with the school system, and the State Department decided every school system needed one school nurse. And so that's the job I applied for, and I've been here ever since. And the program has grown from me, one person, to now we have staff of 15 nurses.
Well, what education is required to be a nurse?
You can, those different tracks that we talked about a little bit earlier depends on which degree that you pursue. So you can do either go through like a community college and do the LPN track or the RN track, or you can go through a major university and do a bachelor's level degree. And then there are a multitude of advanced practice nurses. If someone would choose to go beyond that bachelor's degree, there are master's programs and doctorate programs. A lot of the nurse practitioner programs are up to a doctorate program.
So for a community college person who's going in a community college program,
Yes.
then they do the 2 years and then maybe an internship or some kind of a...
They do start with their clinicals and the nursing program itself. So an RN in the community college setting is going to be an associate degree, but they're also going to be a registered nurse. So where you come in with becoming that registered nurse is that exam.
Okay.
So all nurses are required to sit for their exams when they finish their degree. So just because you finish your degree doesn't mean you're a nurse that can go to work. You have to be certified. So you either take like the LPN certification or the registered nurse certification.
Do you have to renew that certification?
Yes, every 2 years we renew with continuing education hours.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What are the most important character traits for someone who is considering a career in healthcare?
Let's see. Character, I would say one of the biggest things that I think is important for that would be ethics. just ethics of human rights is huge. That just encompasses so many things when you talk about human rights. How you treat other people, how you respect other people, the diversity of other people, because you're caring for that person. That patient is why you're here. You're here to take care of that patient. And so how you treat that patient and how you care for that patient is going to be one of the biggest important things that you're going to do in that job. So treating that person and respecting their rights is really big. The other things I would think would be motivation, that you're self-motivated. I think that goes with any type of profession or job, and that you actually love what you're doing. You should love your job.
Are there other opportunities in healthcare for students who do not want to be a doctor or a nurse?
Oh, sure. The healthcare field is just wide open, and I know it's growing daily. It just seems like it's just opening up more and more. So there are those jobs that are like nursing assistants. They're certified nursing assistants. And then there are aides, such as in like physical therapy aides, occupational health aides, and then that goes on further if you want to become a physical therapist, an occupational. There's sonography, there's radiology. It's just wide open. And I think with the tech field, how it has opened up different opportunities also in the healthcare field. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of opportunities out there.
What is a mistake you made in your nursing career that gave you an important lesson?
Oh, wow. So nurses don't like to make mistakes because it's just very difficult because of the line of work that you're in. But, of course, we do. We all make mistakes. And so one thing that comes to mind is I was actually working in surgery. And when you're in surgery, my responsibility was that I was responsible for the room as a circulator nurse. So other people will come in and help you, set up your room and get ready for your procedure. And I had a help that day, which is absolutely great because there was a lot of equipment to set up. And so there was a piece of equipment set up by someone else, and it wasn't done exactly right, so it malfunctioned in the middle of the procedure. So, of course, that was on me, even though, I didn't directly set that up. That was my mistake for not checking behind. So when something goes wrong, I think you just have to take responsibility for it, for your actions. So therefore, it was my responsibility to go to that surgeon and say, this is what's happened, and this is, I need you to know that because of the care of the patient. Right. And, of course, there were no negative outcomes for the patient, and that's the most important thing, yes, that you don't have any negative outcomes. But you have to stand up and admit what you've done and say, this is what's happened, this is what I've done, and we need to do whatever we need to do to take care of that patient. You don't want to throw someone else under the bus. That's not where you're going. Right. It's to say, hey, this happened, I'm sorry this happened, and this is what we need to do to move forward to correct it so that the patient has a good outcome.
Well, how has COVID changed the way that you do your job?
Oh, wow. COVID's changed everyone, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. It has impacted the world. It has been a huge pandemic that we've never seen before. So, of course, it's changed the way I think everyone does their job. So one of the things I think as far as in-school nursing is that it did shine a light on the schools, the school systems as a whole. Teachers, administrators, everyone was impacted by COVID. The way learning, we've gone to a lot of virtual learning. Technology was highlighted tremendously also during COVID.
It was.
We relied so much on technology because we had students at home. And now it's like, how are we going to teach them? And so on our end, it was also on how are we going to communicate. And even when we opened our doors back and students came back in, there's infection control measures. And how are we going to go about doing that during a pandemic? So we changed the way we do things inside our health rooms to provide more infection control for the protection of our students and our staff. And the technology part also opened the door for us also in learning different ways to communicate with our parents and with our students.
What would you say is the most important high school courses or experience to prepare me for a healthcare field?
First of all, I think you have to look at the core classes that are there. We all need that basic core education before we move forward into any type of specialties. And some of the core classes I would think would be your biologies, your health, life sciences, and math. I think math and science are the core to a lot of those degrees. You know, nursing is a science. It has science background because of the anatomy and physiology, so those are good courses that you can take also. And then the other thing I think would be really big is like the opportunity that we have here, that students have here at the Lawrence County Career Technical Center, and that is a huge door opened for students. Years ago, those opportunities weren't there. And so they are today, and it's a huge growing field, career tech is. And to have the opportunity to go ahead and move forward into some of those healthcare science classes and, as so-called, get your feet wet, learn about the field, because there's such a huge opportunity, and sometimes you might not know which direction you want to go. You just know, hey, I would like to do some type of healthcare. So those courses, I think, would help to spark your interest and to also give you an idea of actually what's involved in healthcare.
Well, how do you see healthcare changing over the next few years?
I think healthcare is changing already, and it's going to continue to move in the direction of critical thinking skills. I think as far as nursing itself, that nurses are required to be at a much higher level in their critical thinking skills and their skills. Technology has changed a lot of what we do, and I think we're going to be moving forward with technology. Nurses are required to provide that health care, that one-on-one direct health care, but so much of it involves technology. I mean, just to check a blood pressure or an IV pump, or if you're in like a healthcare setting in a hospital, it's huge. So I think that level of skill and the training that nurses are getting now is going to change dramatically, even in the education part.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about any help with education costs for students who aspire to be in the healthcare field?
I would suggest that students check with their counselors. I don't know anything specifically to tell you today, except that I would definitely promote that, to chat with your counselors. There are so many scholarships, grants. It's just such a multitude of things that are available for students now. And I would just encourage anyone that was interested to follow those pursuits, and don't just give up and say, I can't afford to go to college or to further my education. There are so many resources that are available, and you should never give up, because those opportunities are there.
Yes. Well, what other advice would you give to a student who's considering a career in healthcare?
Careers in healthcare can be a challenge, and I would suggest or encourage, I guess, to persevere. Persevere through, don't give up. If you're going through one track of healthcare and decide that one's not for you, there may be another path for you, and to pursue those aspirations and just to keep moving forward.
Well, Sherry McWhorter, thank you for being our guest on Speak Out today. And Joseph, thank you for being my co-host today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here today. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
You have been listening to Speak Out Podcast, a community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. I'm your host, Larry Smith, and I'd like to thank my co-host, Joseph Perry, and our guest, Mrs. Sherry McWhorter. Please check out our podcast on the Lawrence County Career Technical School website, and we hope that you'll join us for future episodes.